All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. Another episode, I should say, of Extreme. I say edition a lot.
You do.
I need to say episode. I don't know.
They know what you mean.
Are they different or no?
I don't know.
Well,
we'll ask Daniel Vitalis about it.
I'll look it up.
It works.
It works. We're currently broadcasting worldwide from Southern California, and it's a beautiful day here once again. My name is Justin, and my co-host is Kate.
Hello, everybody.
She's also my wife, Kate.
That works out nice.
That works out. She lives here. It's always a good thing.
And it's a good thing.
This is extremehealthradio.com, and we're currently doing shows 4 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it's an honor to do those shows. And I want to thank Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network. It's an honor to be on there. And if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, we have a growing community on there, which is exciting, and it grows every day. And we post a few times a day. You can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook. And you can just go ahead and click the like button on there, and you'll be off and running. And today, for reference, is Thursday, April 25th, 2013. And can you believe, Kate, it's episode number 93 already?
No.
Yeah. Amazing.
About to hit the triple digit mark.
Fireworks are going to go off at 100. So this is a really fun thing for us to be able to do for you guys and to give this information to you. So it's a lot of fun. And if you'd like to send us a message to ask our guest, that would be great. Justin at extremehealthradio.com, or you can email my wife,
Kate at extremehealthradio.com.
And also you can send a voicemail line. We've got a little voicemail feature on our website. If you go to extremehealthradio.com/voicemail, all one word, you'll be able to record a message for our guest right there on your computer. So please do that. It'd be great to increase the interaction with you guys. And I want to let you know this show is also brought to you by Amazon.com. So if you ever make purchases from Amazon, and I know everyone does these days, please go through our link. We'd be very appreciative of that. We'll get a little commission for that order. And you don't have to buy anything related to health. You can just purchase anything you'd like. But you need to do it every single time if you want to give us credit. So it's extremehealthradio.com/Amazon. And that will just redirect you there, and you can make a purchase and all that good stuff. So anyway, we've got a lot of great guests coming up. On Monday, April 29th, we've got Chris Keller, and he's an energetic kind of healer guy. And we all need healing, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Don't we?
Don't we? And so I'm
looking forward to that one.
That should be a good show. And then on Thursday, May 2nd, we've got Dr. Stephen Hines from HopeWellnessCenter.com. And he's doing some unique work down in San Angelo, Texas with Lyme disease and all kinds of autoimmune diseases and things. So that should be a good show. He's a real cutting edge guy. And then we've got Billy Best. Have you heard of him, Kate?
I have not.
I originally heard him interviewed on Natural News by Mike Adams. And he's a really interesting guy. He was forced as a kid. He's about 38, I think now, but he was forced as a kid to get chemo.
No.
They forced him to get chemo, and he took a couple rounds of it because he had some kind of cancer and just took off. And it was like this national story. And
oh, I know that you've talked about him.
Yeah.
I didn't know his name. Oh, my gosh.
It's going to be a good show. Billy Best.
Right on.
And let's see. What else? Today we've got Daniel Vitalis on the show again for our second interview. And he's a real amazing guy. He's a leading health motivator and nutritionist, herbalist. He runs DanielVitalis.com and SirThrival.com, where he's got a whole product line of amazing products. Cutting edge products he's bringing to the marketplace, products that, may have been around before, but not in the way that he's doing them. And he teaches people all around the world. And last time we talked to him, he was in the desert getting the sun on, I think during the winter months. And so this time he's back in Maine. And so thanks a lot, Daniel, for joining the show today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
Excellent. So things are going good in Maine. You've been back for a little while?
Yeah, I've learned over the years that it makes a lot of sense if you're going to live in a place. I heard you guys at the beginning of the show. Oh, here in Southern California, it's another beautiful day, and I'm going, yep, every day there. I know, every time. So when you live in a place like New England, not so much like that. And we get 6 months of dark clouds, snow. So yeah, I've learned to migrate and come back.
So,
and right now the grass is growing and the buds are just starting to open and things are looking glorious here.
So how often do you do the migratory pattern thing every year?
I'm learning to leave earlier and come back later every time. So this year, I left about January 1st and I got back April 1st.
Oh, wow.
So I think next year I might push it to April 15.
There you go.
A little early still.
Well, that's really cool. And you can take care of all your business and run everything there and do your teachings and stuff.
It's such a fantastic opportunity we have right now where we can run these businesses from sort of, I'm sure you guys are similar, you can, if you have internet connection, you can probably run your thing from anywhere. And so I know that I can. And it allows me the ability to kind of go from place to place, which is nice. And
when you go there, you go to Arizona, right?
I really love Arizona. Wow. Yeah, I've got a real connection to that place, that landscape. And I've been going to Sedona the last couple of years, which is a nice, just a gorgeous, it's all sculpted, red sandstone rocks and incredibly soothing place in a really healthy community of people there. Almost to the point of being a little too flaky to handle. But I always joke that I'd prefer to hang out with healthy, flaky people than incredibly grounded, angry people. So for that reason, Sedona is just wonderful.
That is awesome.
That's great. So, wow. So now you're back in Maine and ready to do your thing. And that's really great.
Yeah, just getting ready now for, a season of foraging and gardening and, hiking and exploring.
Wow. So when you're over in Arizona, were you able to do any foraging for food out there? Or
at that time of the year, it's winter there as well. So there's not a whole lot happening. I mean, there's little bits here and there, but I think really, if I was there now through the growing season, now their stuff's just starting to kick off. And, the big thing out in Arizona that I would love to do at some point and haven't really got to do before is the saguaro cactus fruit harvest, which happens in the early summer there. And that's the kind of thing where you're getting up at, 4 a.m. to go out because the heat of the day is so extreme that you have to start knocking these fruits off the cactus before the sun comes up. Gather as many of you can before the sun gets too hot and lay them out to dry. And it's really, truly an exquisite food, but I haven't got to be out there for that harvest yet. So it's something I'm looking forward to in the future.
Wow. And you can eat that kind of food and you just kind
it's one of the most divine fruits. One of the things people don't realize is that the fruits that they've grown up on are all domesticated produce. In other words, these are fruits that don't really have a place in nature. They have a relative in nature, and they've been changed over the course of years through, humans sequestering their seeds and breeding them in specific soils with specific phenotypes and creating what we have now. And then most of the fruits people eat today, this is a huge, shocking revelation for me. And I hope that the impact is there for the listener right now. The impact's there when we talk about animals. People think it's really weird, the idea that remember that sheep they were cloning, Dolly?
Yeah, I can't forget that.
Nobody really wants to eat cloned sheep. But I don't think people realize that every, red delicious apple, every yellow delicious apple, every Cortland apple, every Macintosh apple, every Fuji apple, those are all clones. There's only genetically one apple. When you go to the store, you're getting, when you buy a variety of apple, they're all the same. They're all clones. And most of the fruits, it's the same with the bananas, right? You open the banana up, you don't find seeds in there.
Right.
Why? Well, that's a hybrid and it's a clone. So most of the fruits people have been eating, I mean, really, think about this for a minute. Most people have only eaten a couple of different fruits in their life at the genetic level, literally. Every apple they eat's the same apple, cloned again and again and again and again and again.
Right.
So what's the difference when you go out and harvest a saguaro fruit off a cactus? Every plant that you harvest it from, you're getting different genetic information. Does that matter? Well, turns out it does. And turns out that as we move past our old school paradigm of sugars, fats, proteins, minerals, and vitamins, we're moving into a new arena we call nutrigenomics. And it's the study of the impact of foods on our genetics.
Wow.
That our genome actually responds, our epigenome responds to the foods we eat, particularly to the RNA that's in plants. So there's a difference between eating the same cloned genome over and over again and eating a variety of wild plants like our ancestors did. And I think it's a huge part of what we're going to talk about today, which is how do we shift our diets so that we can sort of come out of this species-wide weakness that we've developed? Because just like our purebred dogs get weaker and weaker each generation, right? They develop diseases that are degenerative that comes from them interbreeding over and over and over and over again, and getting further away from their wild counterpart. Well, it's the same with us. And so we're at this point now where human beings are suffering from degenerative diseases on a massive scale, right? This isn't a small thing. This is on a massive scale. The cardiovascular system comes apart. We call that heart disease or heart attack, cardiovascular disease. The ability to process carbohydrate comes apart. We call that diabetes. The skeleton starts to come unglued. We call that arthritic conditions. The immune system comes unglued, right? We call it autoimmunity. I mean, there's all these ways that the human body is literally falling apart. And that didn't exist in our ancestors. It has to do with the domestication process in people. A huge part of it is the foods we're eating. Another big part of it is the lifestyle we've been leading. The path back to health is so shockingly obvious and simple, but it's so radical that it's like the people who are studying this aren't able to figure it out. It's bizarre. It's like it's the elephant in the room. Nobody can figure out. And here it is, plain and simple. I'm going to lay it out plain and simple. Every step we take as a species away from what was natural for our species leads to more disease.
Yeah.
End of story. That's it. It's that simple. And we would get this with another species. I always use this analogy that if we were going to try to keep a chimpanzee healthy in a zoo, we don't have to think too much about how we would do it. We would just set the zoo up to resemble the natural habitat of that animal as much as we could. And we would set the diet up to resemble the natural diet of that animal as much as we could. And we'd try to create the social environment that animal would have in its natural habitat.
It just makes sense, right?
It makes sense. And every departure from that obviously would have some ill health effect. I mean, this is just obvious. It's like if we decided we were going to keep the chimp in a zoo, but we were going to deprive it of sunlight, and we were only going to let it use halogens or incandescents or LED lights instead, or fluorescent tubes. We can tell. It's just obvious, right? That would not be good for the chimp.
Right.
Or if we were going to restrict natural water from it, and we were only going to give it fluoridated, chlorinated water that had phosphoric acid and sodium hydroxide in it, like the water we drink out of our taps. And maybe, let's say, 50 pharmaceuticals present and birth control in the water. we would expect, it would be obvious, hey, that water is going to cause some ill health effects. If we took its food away, right, its natural fruit diet and seed diet, and instead we gave it
donuts.
Donuts, Captain Crunch, Pop-Tarts,
Yeah.
We would know. It's just so obvious, right?
Yeah.
If we restricted it from healthy air and instead only let it have dust-laden, deionized, basically cooked, heated, conditioned air sealed up with volatile organic compounds in it, we would know that the animal would get sick. So it's obvious. But when it comes to us, we expect that we should be able to live like this, and there's not going to be any ill health effects. And people literally walk miles and miles and miles trying for that cure for cancer.
Yeah.
Right? They keep walking, and I don't know what they think. I mean, do they think that some pill is going to come out that's going to make cancer go away?
Yeah.
Cancer is a disease that happens when the cells rebel against your own body. And they do it in response to extreme toxicity or extreme departure from nature. I mean, this is really obvious.
Yeah.
But we can keep walking and walking and walking in shoes that disconnect us from the earth and in clothes that are made out of genetically modified cotton, and are outgassing formaldehyde. That are giving us cancer, and we can walk and walk and walk, and Kentucky Fried Chicken and keep making chicken buckets, to help stop breast cancer. It's just so obvious this is not the answer. It's not going to work. So every departure from nature leads us towards ill health.
So the interesting piece of it all is a lot of people will think, well, I can hear their objections in their head now. Well, if I sit on the couch and do something, or if I eat, McDonald's or something, any one thing is not going to be that bad. But I think what we're talking about and what your message is we're talking about a cumulative effect of adding probably 20 or 30 or 50 or more things that we think are normal in our life, on top of one another, and that's what causes disease. All of these things combined together, right?
Yeah, compound. So you've got vertical accumulation of behavioral events. Like it's not the one McDonald's trip, it's the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of meals of toxic processed foods. That's our vertical event accumulation. And then our horizontal event of over the course of years and years and years and years. So it's kind of both vectors, right? So I love this saying, it's not what you do 10% of the time, it's what you do 90% of the time that really matters for your health. So I really have learned over the years to avoid the extremes. Right. I've learned that through, being an extremist. So I have compassion for anybody who wants to lean towards an extreme. That's me too. But what I've learned is that it's really about those things that I can consistently anchor in most of the time. That's what builds my health. And I can get away with certain things if I limit it down to very infrequent occasions. But it's when are your main behaviors health building or are they abusive? And if they're abusive, of course, they're going to break you down. And the challenge that we're facing is that our culture has set up something where finding those health building behaviors is really difficult.
So what do you think?
Incredibly difficult.
So what do you think? Yeah, I was just going to ask a little bit about that. Like as far in terms of what people are doing on a daily basis, I mean, I know you could go into many, many different things that people do that are unhealthy. And we talked about some of them, but you're looking at exposures to carpets or just people's traditional work schedules where they're getting up and they're stressed. And I guess you could really paint a picture that just about everything that people are doing.
Everyone falls into probably 45 category.
Yeah. I'm just about
45 by 9 a.m.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we could go on and we could paint it would be too bleak, right? So I think what we have to do is look at what are our solutions. I mean, that's the big thing, right? Is just before the call started, I was talking about with you guys that there's a challenge in presenting this to somebody and saying, hey, we're in a really dire situation. There's a challenge because people get freaked out and they don't want to know about it if there aren't easy solutions. What I think is exciting is there are lots of solutions. We can make changes. And I've always loved this idea that, adding in positive things is the way to go. Trying to remove negative things from your life is really challenging because you create a vacuum. Right? Now there's this empty space.
Right.
You need replacement behaviors.
Right.
So really what's smart, I think, is to, instead of going, hey, I've got to stop eating this, you say, hey, I'm going to start eating this. And when you start eating this, now there's not as much room in your diet anymore. So something else has to get pushed out.
Right.
That's exactly what we've both done.
And it's sustainable and it works, right? And so we can start to approach all this stuff that way and start to bring in new behaviors. And the vetting system will be if that new behavior yields results, the results will empower you to continue with it.
Right.
I mean, it's great. I like that because if something's not yielding results, who's going to keep doing it, or how long are you going to keep doing it?
Right.
So I think it's really about trying things out. If they work, you'll want to do them because they'll make you feel good and they'll push the other things out. Over time, our vision really clears up and we're able to start seeing the world a little bit more for what it is, which is a really bizarre, shocking, transhuman, domesticated world of artifacts.
Right.
It's like a virtual reality that we've been living in. And most of us have been disconnected from the natural world. I want to just add this piece in here. This word artifact is really, I think it's a really important word. It's where we get that word art from. An artifact is an object that bears the mark of human will upon it. So what's the difference between a stone arrowhead and a stone? Say that they're made out of the same thing. It's that the stone is a naturally occurring mineral, and the stone arrowhead bears the mark of human will upon it. It's been shaped by humans.
Right.
Well, we're living in a world now where nearly everything we're interacting with is an artifact. Nearly everything. So you might say, not so. I go outside and it's grass out there. Grass, domesticated grasses brought from some other part of the world. Yeah, but what about the trees here? Well, those trees are probably not native to where they are now. They've been brought there and they're likely horticultural domesticates or horticultural varieties that aren't really found naturally occurring. most of what we're interacting with. Here's a shocking piece. I live here in New England. Earthworms are not native here.
Really?
Everybody here thinks that the earthworms are really good for the soil. It turns out the earthworms are advancing north and consuming the duff layer and destroying the forests up into Canada because they're not from here. There were no earthworms in most of North America prior to the colonists coming here. They were brought here. So even these simple things that we think of as being really normal and natural represent changes made by people who've gone crazy. So we live in a world of artifacts. So it can be challenging to talk to people about nature because we don't see much of it anymore.
Wow. Yeah, no, I hear you. Just about everything, like you said, we're being exposed to is really just an artifact. It's fake. It's something that was brought here. And we got to take a short break, Daniel. We're having a good time with Daniel Vitalis from danielvitalis.com and surthrival.com. And if you're interested in some cutting edge products, as you can probably tell, Daniel Vitalis is a unique individual and is bringing some products to the market in a very unique way. Check out surthrival.com. And if you want to go through our link, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/surthrival. And check out his products there, but really, really unique stuff. And we're going to take a short break and run this ad. We'll be right back after this break. If you're like me, chances are you've tried lots of different whey protein powders and different protein powders on the market. The two I like are Sun Warrior Protein and One World Whey. One is vegan and one is not, but One World Whey, I love it. It's 100% raw and grass-fed, coming from Amish farmers with healthy cows. It's an incredible product. It's got about 25 grams of protein with each scoop, which is really, really high. It increases the glutathione levels in your body. It helps to eliminate heavy metals and toxins out of your body, as well as radioactive fallout from chemtrails. And it helps to decrease inflammation in the intestines, which helps with having healthy bowel movements. It builds lean muscle, and it's great for your skin and anti-aging. It increases your energy levels. It's really, really a great product, and it's not just for building muscle. It has so many benefits, and you can learn more about all the benefits of this incredible product at extremehealthradio.com/whey, WHEY, and it's put together by Synergistic Nutrition, and One World Whey is the product name. I highly recommend checking it out. If you are interested in buying it, please consider doing it through us. We'll get a little commission, and you will see what I'm talking about. You're going to be hooked and addicted to this stuff. So consider this product as part of your daily protocol. Maybe put it in your smoothies, and just it's really, really a great product. So thanks for listening, and let's get back to this interview. I've been sticking to this outro music because I like it. You like it, Kate?
I love this music.
Yeah, it's
It's
good.
my favorite one.
Yeah, I just like it. I think we should just keep using it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're hanging out with a bunch of dudes in a pick and parlor
In a pick and
New
parlor.
Orleans.
I love it.
I love it.
So we're with Daniel Vitalis, and his website is danielvitalis.com, and his other product site is called surthrival.com. And before the break, we were talking about a little bit about some of the ways that people can change. And, it's really interesting with me. I was introduced to this concept by subtraction by addition from David Wolfe a few years ago, probably back in 2003.
Yep.
And it's amazing, really, a principle that where you remove negative things from your life or remove negative eating habits or whatever by introducing positive things.
Right.
And like Daniel was saying, and you don't focus on the bad stuffs. And so for a while there, I was, drinking shakes from Baskin Robbins and everything. But my one discipline was to have a green smoothie every day. And I don't care.
I remember that.
And
yeah.
I would have like a Baskin Robbins, or I would have a green smoothie and then a Baskin Robbins sometimes. And it was like this crazy order of things, but it was a great way to build a discipline. And Daniel, don't you just love that whole strategy there?
I think it's really crucial. And one of the big challenges, I'm laughing to myself about the Baskin Robbins comment. One of the real challenges is filtering down all of the health information and practices and tips that come our way, because we hear about all this different stuff that we can be doing. How do we actually integrate it into our lives? It requires, if you think of each of these little things as a tactic, like the green smoothie is a kind of tactic. Mm-hmm. That's a tactical approach, right? But the overall picture of your whole health approach is a strategy. So there's like the tactical thinking of like all the little things. I want to be doing saunas, and I want to be eating more, salads, and I want to have green smoothies. Those are all your little tactics. And what I really get interested in is the bigger picture strategy. What's our strategy to bring all these things in? How can we bring them into our lives in a way that we can anchor them and they can be sustainable? And how can we deal with the barrage of new health information that's coming all the time and figure out what we should listen to and what we shouldn't? Right? Because I bet you guys have noticed this in the time that you've been interested in health. I certainly have noticed it. I've been, at this for about 15 years. And in that course of time, there are things that I have watched switch from good to bad, good to bad, good to bad, over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
For instance, I've watched eggs. When I first got into nutrition, eggs were bad. They were high in cholesterol. Then they were good. They were high in proteins and, high in good fats. Then they were only good if you only ate the whites. Then they were bad again. Then they came back to being good. I've watched that thing go back and forth. I've watched that with salt too.
Yeah.
I've watched that with protein. I've watched it with fat. These are all fads and trends. And one of the things that I like to say when I do interviews is that if I'm telling you anything that's new, you really need to question it. Hopefully, everything I tell you is old. Why? Because biology is old, and biology's already figured all this stuff out a long time ago. So there shouldn't be new nutrition information, if that makes sense. The only people coming with new nutrition information are people like Monsanto, because they're making up new stuff.
Right. Yeah. Half of their food is brand new.
Everything else should be pretty old, right?
Yeah.
So we need to first anchor that idea. The second thing I want to bring up is that when we're looking at all this health information, it's sort of like we might end up with you can almost imagine a desktop covered in sticky notes, and each sticky note's got a different thing that you've learned about health, and it can become this big, chaotic, nebulous, disorganized place, so that we're holding on to all this health information, but most people are really confused, and they don't feel like they have a clear path through it. So what I want to do today is share my personal strategy that's helped me to really make sense of some of this stuff and help me to feel really grounded and sane and calm about health, because I was pretty frantic about it for a while. I'd be hearing all this different stuff. It all felt like it was conflicting. I'd hear all these different experts. Nothing really made sense to me, and I was running all around, trying to figure it out. So the first key piece that I think is important to anchor in, and then I'm going to give you a filing folder system so you can organize all your little Post-it notes of health tactics.
Nice. Okay.
But the first piece is this. Human beings are an animal. We are no doubt a really unique animal. I mean, one of the unique things about us is that we harnessed fire really early on. A second unique thing is that we learned how to make tools. I mean, we're truly unique. The big obvious unique thing is about us is that we have this ability to process, communicate, and share emotional and spiritual things with each other, that we don't see that taking place in the same way amongst other species. So we're like the angel ape. Right? To quote Terence McKenna, he says, we're part angel, part ape. We're really a special, unique animal. But on the biological level, let's face it, we're not that much different than any other mammal. We work just like, and we can try to hide it, and some of the real animal parts of ourselves we shut away in sterile rooms, like the fact that babies come out of vaginas. Right. And that's pretty shocking, and most of us don't really get to see it ever, right?
Right.
That we hide it because it's so animal. The fact that our babies feed from milk from the mammaries of just like all the other mammals, and that's what the word mammal means, right? The mammary gland. The fact that we feed our children from milk from our own bodies, just like all the other apes, that's incredible. We all pass away at the end of our lifespan, just like all the other animals. We're biologically, cellularly, we're the same. So we need to understand we can't try to live fully like we're some kind of angelic Star Trek, Star Wars being from the future, because it's not working. We need to appreciate our biology. In order to understand our biology, it's really critical that we take a look at what our lifestyle was like before we domesticated and left our wild environment. The way to do that is to look at the indigenous people. They represent our link back to the natural world. They are the people that lived in the natural world. Now, it's true that there's not a lot of those people left to study, but we have lots of records of how they lived. And there are some still that we can look at. And we see that those people are hunter-gatherers. and we see that what their diets were like, what their lifestyle was like. And really what makes sense is that we build our future lifestyle off of that lifestyle that we had in the past. It's the same as what I said about the chimpanzee earlier.
Right.
We get that if we're going to take the chimpanzee and put it in a zoo, we need to create a zoo that's got habitat like that chimp had. We live in a kind of zoo. We call it civilization. And that zoo could be set up a little bit more to resemble the lifestyle we had when we were hunter-gatherers. That would be really smart. That would be the smart approach. Anything that deviates from that is new and therefore bears the burden of truth and justification. It has to prove itself because otherwise it's not a time-proven strategy. What our hunter-gatherer ancestors did, they did for 200,000 years, and it worked perfectly.
But to play devil's advocate, wouldn't people say, well, those people probably died young, or they just had, they didn't have long, healthy lives like we have now? And I could see people, bringing up that argument.
Yeah, so this is a really important piece of it because here's the news. Here, it's not news, it's old. I don't know what you call old news. It's old news. They were far healthier than us. What's really interesting is that farming for humans, and farming is it's a more complex issue than it might sound like up front. But when I say farming, I mean the domestication of plants and animals and the movement from the change from a life of gathering and hunting to a sedentary life of living in villages and cities. We made that change in Mesopotamia about 10,000 years ago. Uh-huh. When we did that, we see immediately in the fossil record, cavities begin to form in the teeth, bones begin to bear the scars of arthritis, the skeleton shrinks dramatically, and the brain gets smaller. So first thing that you need to understand is that there are skeletal deformities and smaller brains in modern people than those people who were hunter-gatherers in the past. Wow. So that's an important piece to anchor in. We are not supposed to have crooked teeth or teeth with holes in them. That's not natural to us. So those are diseases caused by this lifestyle that we're living. The second piece is they don't have chronic degenerative diseases. So they did not have heart attacks, cancer, diabetes, obesity, the kind of mental illness we're seeing. None of this stuff existed in statistically significant numbers then. That stuff's all been brought on by how we're living. So actually, we're far sicker and we're more distorted than they were, right? And so this was... He says... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. This was as a result of the domestication and farming practices that started in Mesopotamia, you said?
I just want to say first that this is incredibly well established. There's not really any argument about this. So when I say this, I encourage everybody to go out and look a little bit at the anthropology, because one of the questions that exists in the world of those who study this is, why would we have left our lifestyle of hunting and gathering for this lifestyle when it was so bad for us? Right. Because this is another important part. The farming lifestyle looks like it starts at sunrise and it ends at sunset. It's nonstop work and it's backbreaking labor. It's part of why we see the bone deformities that took place when people started farming. What we know about hunter-gatherers is their work week looks like about 15 hours. And the rest of their time is leisure. So this question emerges, why would human beings go from a life that was filled with leisure, that had no famine? Famine only exists amongst those who farm. So there was no famine, therefore not really any starvation. There was no chronic disease. They had better bodies. They had bigger brains. They were far more robust, far healthier, and lived a far more relaxed lifestyle. Why would they go to backbreaking labor that took all day to get a lower quality food that led to disease? There's a lot of questions about that. One of the questions, one of the potential answers is that really we see in the Fertile Crescent, the first things that they were growing were barley and wheat. And it would take you if you were working with barley and wheat, it would probably take you less than a month to figure out how to make beer.
Yeah.
And one thought is that it was actually the ability to create consistent alcohol that may be what caused people to actually take on that lifestyle. But that remains unclear.
Right.
But the point I want to bring out is this. Prior to our modern medical system, it was very difficult to keep every baby alive. Babies would die in the delivery process or very early in their childhood. That was much more common. And in fact, I think that's part of nature's way of making sure that we stay genetically very strong. Our modern system keeps far more babies alive. What that does is it gives us a higher average